Let's aspire and inspire and celebrate us,
Include
our collective
guests that have
journeys and
traveled from
accomplishments.
Hyderabad, Bangalore.
We are Ladies Who Lead.
Hello. Yeah. So I was saying that everyone here today now has come in from Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, and we're going to be hearing a lot of different and varied stories this afternoon. I'm actually quite privileged to be on this stage with these two remarkable ladies. Don't get too confused with the title of Women in STEM. What they both are founders first, and both of them have just remarkable stories to share. So I'm going to dive right in. Geeta, let me start off with you, because
Sure.
I think how you broke a barrier in the space, discovering a solution through AI for women and you know, finding a solution for them on how to detect breast cancer is something that really blew everyone's mind, right? Talk to us about that. Tell us exactly you know, what Nirmai AI is all about.
Sure. First of all, it's excellent to be among really ladies who are already leading. You know, I don't know. It's just about sharing each other's stories, you know, and learning from each other, really. And thanks for bringing them all together. So my story is, yes, from STEM to entrepreneurship. So essentially, yes, I'm Geeta. I'm basically a computer scientist, shy, techie. That's what I was, I guess. Introvert and all of those typical sort of techie qualities. I did my master's in computer science. Did very well in my bachelor's as well, a master's as well. I did it in Indian Institute of Science. Being in Bangalore, it was helpful. Then I was a gold medalist. You know, everybody said like you should go abroad. I'm like, Meri Bharat Mahan, I'm not going to go abroad. I joined the research organization because I always wanted to do something that's different from the regular sort of process or something. I used to have a lot of fun trying to solve problems which was not solved before. I mean, that's like, you get that aha moment, right? When you're solving your crossword, cryptic crossword or something, same meaning. I mean, that's what I really enjoy doing. So that's what happened. And then I was at Hewlett Packard Labs as one of the first few members of the research. So essentially, I was a principal scientist for 17 years. Then I went on to lead AI research for Xerox as a lab director. So pura STEM, techie, everything. And of course, I was also a techno manager. I did my management education from Kellogg. So all this was a nice standard career growth kind of a story. That's when things changed. Two of my very close family members, almost sisters, got detected with breast cancer. They were just 38 and 42 years of age. And within a year or so, it recurred and I lost both of them. It kind of happened almost 1 year apart, but when the first like it's almost like sister, I said, right? And we've grown together from the beginning, you know, from school days, high school days, every summer spending together. Suddenly when I saw her disappear, it just struck me like, what's happening in this world? You know, how can a 38-year-old just disappear, a small son, the whole family is shattered. It was a huge, shocking moment. And I said, I'm trying to sit here, solve problems for the world, trying to make people go from point A to point B very fast, and you know, customer care, a lot of AI problems we were solving. And but here is a problem which is taking away small young girls, and nobody's looking at it. So that's when I started a small exploratory project within Xerox in my you know, in my budget in some sense. And after some time, I realized that, you know, I had like 30 other projects and this was not getting enough time. More so, you know, those of you who've been in large corporates, so there's already, you always need to have a strategic alignment with a goal, right? You know, otherwise, I myself had to shut down them because Xerox was not into cancer, not into medical devices. So I was seeing myself shutting down my favorite kind of a project, and I said, you know, I will shut down, but I'm going to quit. So it was, I think, an important moment. where I just told myself, if nothing happens, I'm just going to try it for 2 years. If nothing happens, I'll get another job. It's not a problem. So we were talking about financial sort of, stability and so on and so forth. I said, okay, I have enough money in the bank to handle 2 years. Later, dekhenge kya hoga. So that's how I quit. And so now we are 8 years into it. And I am very, very glad to let you know that we have invented a completely new method of detecting breast cancer, which just measures temperature variations on the chest, just like the camera that's out there, a simple thermal imaging device, which is called infrared camera, which measures temperature variations just like a passport photography session. You keep the device here and measure, and our AI software converts that into a breast health report automatically. And this is, thank you. Thank you. So this is instant reporting, though of course the report goes to a doctor before, a quick review and handing it over to you. And of course, it was a very new solution. No one else in this world has it, and so on and so forth. Of course, there are pockets of doctors who have tried to use thermal before, and so on. But to actually make it into a proper medical device, which is proven to the doctor that it is actually detecting all cancers or not missing any cancer in the person who's in front, plus not calling out too many people as positive. That's also very, very important. We don't want too many false alarms, right? So that was very, very important. So we had to work with the hospitals to conduct studies, we say, right? Starting from our test and do the rest of the tests and compare like a question paper, right? Trying to do these kind of studies. And then regulatory clearance, it's of course cancer detection. So we had to go through a lot of regulatory. We got the US FDA, we got the CE mark. So now we are in about 300 locations around India. And because of some of the awards, etc., that we got a lot of incoming leads from outside India as well. So now we are in 22 countries, and for now, 2.5 lakh women have benefited already. If you have not heard about it, if you're not on a breast screening, go get a test done. It's also there in Mumbai and of course Bangalore and other places also. I can go into any amount of detail in any parts of this, but this is the story. Yeah, I'll pause here.
Dr. Geeta has also been recognized as one of the top self-made women in India, and of course for her work on creating this new solution. Come back to you on more on that as well, but let me also bring you in, Dipti, and your story is equally amazing. She told me all of it in the speaker's lounge and threatened not to repeat it, but you were in the US, you've been a founder multiple times, you've been creating solutions, working with the best. You dropped everything overnight and just came back to India on a whim. You even left the husband behind. She said, I have to be politically correct. I can't speak less and I won't record it. So what led to that decision? And you came back, you were, of course, heading WeHub, which is, enabling thousands of women. And what led you to come back, A, partner with the government, B, take on such an enormous task, something that you probably hadn't thought of till then?
Thank you. My husband and I are still married, 20 years to December. And we will continue to be married for very, very long because one of us is smart, and that is me. Jokes apart, my husband is the best person ever, best human. And coming down to your question, what made me come back? Very simple. I wanted to do something for my homeland, that's all. It's a very unromantic, non-Mannat leading Swadesh story. I actually am a hardware engineer. And if you know Hyderabad, how many of you know about Hyderabad? Great. You all know Hyderabad, right? In Hyderabad, there is only one thing. You do engineering, you go to America, you never come back. So that is exactly my story as well, because I'm also an engineer. I grew up with in a kind of a joint family where I had a lot of boy cousins before I was born, and all of them are engineers, and they got into like the top IITs with like 3rd rank, 33rd rank, and all that thing. So for me, STEM was not a choice. It is something that everybody around me did, so I did the same thing. So then I did go to the US, and then I got married at 23. And at that point, I decided that I'll do everything I'm supposed to do by the time I'm 30. I'll have my kids, I'll have all the things that I'm expected to do by 30, and then I'll do everything I want to do from the time I'm 31. So that is what I did. So at that point, when you're an NRI, is when you're the most patriotic. And as a person from Telangana, I mean, I don't know how many of you know the story of the Telangana movement and all that. It's a long story. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. So it is a 60-year struggle. I was part of the Telangana movement even in the US. I was not breaking anything. It was much more ideological. So I was doing that for quite some time. And at that point, without realizing, I was networking with a lot of political people, a lot of ideologists, a lot of thought leaders, thinkers, intellectuals who actually knew a lot more about geopolitics and irrigation, revenue, land, everything else, employment, so much more. So in that, I got connected with a lot of people. And when the state was formed, I was like every NRI, and the minister and the team was visiting the US in the Bay Area. And I was giving them suggestions on how to increase employment in the electronics manufacturing sector. Because of course I'm a know-it-all, I know everything, I've traveled so much, I'm so incredible. And then the minister said one thing which really woke me up. He said, a lot of people talk, a lot of people give advice. But what will you do if I give you a chance to come back and be a part of my government? Will you write policy for us? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And so before he came back to India, I was in his office. So I started literally in 2 days. I came back to India with my children. My mother-in-law didn't even know. I lived with her for 4 months. She thought I was going back at some point. 4 months later, she realized I wasn't. She felt sick. I keep joking that she went from wine to whiskey in 4 months, man. And no, you're not Punjabi, okay? But jokes apart. So that's how my story actually started. Because I realized that you get opportunities once in a lifetime. And an opportunity to be part of something much bigger than yourself comes only once in a lifetime. And I just grabbed it.
Amazing. And Dipti's now officer, special department, IT and...
Okay. And ironically, if you know, Telangana was separated from Andhra Pradesh, right? I just got offered a job with the government of Andhra Pradesh. And I'm going to be the officer on special duty for the IT department for the government of Andhra Pradesh, starting last week, apparently. I didn't know I started work last week, but I was working, so I realized it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for saying that for me. She said backstage, I have OSD for ITES for AP, so, which actually doesn't sound so bad right now, but yeah, it's cool. Okay. So, Dr. Geeta, let me come to you as well. I think, what we'd be really curious to know is you had a very different career, you in the sense, like you said, you're a hardcore techie, and then you became a founder, an entrepreneur. Did you have the same hiccups that perhaps we hear some of the other founders talking about? Did you have the same kind of challenges or struggles in perhaps reaching out to people, creating that awareness, finding people who believed in what you were doing, or was it different for you?
No, absolutely, absolutely. I think every founder has their own journey, but we are sort of creating the path, right? It's like mountaineering or trekking where you're trying to find the path. So there will be weeds. You have to cut the weeds, otherwise you don't make the path. Absolutely, absolutely. So, so essentially, sort of when I started off, first and foremost, I had like two main challenges. One is, of course, I've been a sort of an intrapreneur within the corporate, proposed multiple things and taken it to the business and so on. But I had this cushion of funding, it's not a big deal. So because I had started the work or this activity when I was at Xerox itself, when I quit, it was almost like the IP, whatever initial ideas, initial patents belonged to the company. So I had to sort of figure out a way of paying up something to my previous organization and then take our own IP out, right? And so that required me to sort of raise funds immediately, right? So the first 1 month was, starting to do pitch and so on. But the idea was good, people liked, because we already had a small prototype working, and they thought the team was good, they're going to do the stuff, and we did get a term sheet within 30 days. I was running on a 90-day sort of period to pay them, so on and so forth. So that was good. We got like 3 term sheets within 30 days, which is, now I sit back and say, oh my God, it was good. But I thought, yeah, sure, we should. At that time, I didn't realize. So, so that was the first one, and then we had to sort of evangelize and sort of think about conceptualize itself, the product itself, because there's no other product like that, right? So how does the product look like? And then just on the product side, the doctors are thinking AI will replace them and so on. So whenever you say you're using AI, there's all this sort of negative emotion coming in. They're not giving you feedback, right? Feedback, etc. So on the tech front, building the product front, yes, there were some challenges, but more in terms of how do we commercialize a research prototype into a product? How we envisage this kind of a product to be used, AI-based products. What are the business models? What should be the pricing, right? Those kind of things. So that's one, right? Just the building of the product. Next is if you go to a doctor, the doctor will say, I've never heard about thermal imaging. Of course, the doctors really read tons of books. It's a lot of reading that they have to do. And I've never heard about it. And I'm not even a doctor, though I have a PhD, and that's how I managed to get a DR, and I use it left and right. When I go to a hospital, I just say, I'm Dr. Geeta, they'll just let me in. That's okay. So having said that, I'm not a medical doctor. So they're like, you're telling me you're going to find out some new way of detecting cancer, and why should I trust you? So I think getting the trust of the doctor was one of the major initial milestone that I have to say. I won't say challenge or any of those. It's really about something, a must-do thing for any health tech or clinically oriented health tech product. So here, we used to have like a meter, right? Oh, okay, you meet a doctor, minus 2,000. He's like so negative. And next meeting, you give them enough proof point. This is how it works. Here is our initial study, etc. Then it goes to minus 1,000. And so basically, we were sort of, measuring when do we get this doctor to be on the positive side. Another way to sort of, convert this negative sort of feedback or pushback that you get is to say, okay, fine, you don't buy this device. We are not planning to. We are not here to sell at all. We want to collaborate with you and understand. In case next year, if somebody else, some other doctor, or we go to some other doctor and we want them to buy, what do you think are these 3 things that we should do in order to get there? And you're like our partner, help us do this, right? So when you actually go as, taking them together and as a learning student, then they actually give out some of the, really, they say, go get a US FDA. It was like, I didn't even know of course I knew US FDA at a broad level, but exactly what it requires, what does it take to do it, all that wasn't. So they'll just give you some high-level words, to figure out how to do it, but it's very, very important step where you can learn from the negative feedback. I think that is, something very, very big we did in the first 1 year. A lot of inputs we got. And one clearly feedback that came out is that test it with mammography and tell me that it actually works. So, so we worked with 2 hospitals to set up a clinical study. I realized that there are like very, very formal ways of doing it. So I understood how to do it. Got, of course, external support for it. And we had funding, so it was a little bit more comfortable. And we did the first study. So that was the sort of, just getting the product ready was almost, and then finding your first reference customer, right? Somebody who's willing to stick their neck out and provide this test to others. So we were very fortunate that I found one doctor who had tried thermal imaging before, Dr. Ramprakash sir. He is still my guru, I call him. He's now 75 or something like that years. So he said, I like what you're doing. And I went to him and said, okay, we will generate this report. You don't even have to see the report. You see the report, but you give the diagnosis based on what you have learned on thermal imaging. You may or may not agree with the report. So that's how we started. So he decided to take the liability on himself because he's signing the report if something happens. Then I went to the hospital and say, see, here is a doctor, radiologist. He was head of a very big hospital, HOD of a radiology center of a hospital. So they said, he's going to take up the liability. So we had the first hospital as a reference customer in Bangalore. It's called BMS Hospital. In about 10 months or so. So that's how the journey started. Then we collaborated with cancer societies where there is a lower risk. They're already doing cancer screening, but they're doing with hand examination because outside when you're doing screening. So we said, okay, you're doing with hand examination, why don't you do this test as well so that, we can get more number of people who are. So that's how we started, and to our surprise, and of course we were, fine-tuning the algorithm, etc., we were able to detect 4 millimeter cancer, in some of the cases, which definitely got missed by hand, much before a symptom, like normal looking people, younger people where mammogram doesn't even work, many of you may know mammogram has very, very less accuracy, under 45, it's not recommended. Above 45 also, 50% of women have dense tissue and their mammogram doesn't work. So we started finding cases when we did the study that we had found some positives. that mammogram had said negative, but then ultrasound or biopsy was positive. So we started finding these cases. So these things, gave us additional trust in the doctors, and that's how the story has been. COVID was a big issue as well, but then again, we are live and kicking as of now.
Amazing. Diti, what was it like for you when you took over WeHub? You're now in your new role, but when you first sort of were taking on the challenge of enabling. Dipti doesn't like the word empower, she likes the word enable. She has a story on that, she'll tell us later. But when you're enabling all these thousands of women entrepreneurs, and at different levels, I'm sure you've come across sort of different kinds of businesses as well as grassroots issues. Talk to us really about what were your goals, what did you set out to do, what you feel you achieved during that time?
Thank you. Saying anything after the incredible work that Dr. Geeta is doing feels a little bit like, you need to do so much more. So, yeah, amazing.
You're enabling many of us, actually.
Thank you. So it was quite, before I tell you what we do at WeHub, let me tell you how I got that job. I actually was the only woman in a team of 35 men who was working for the minister. Again, I never noticed that I was a woman in a team of 35 men because the minister didn't notice, none of my teammates noticed. We never noticed it, except for when there was only one bathroom among the 35 of us. That was the only challenge. But then there was a global entrepreneurship summit that happened in Hyderabad, and Ivanka Trump had come to Hyderabad. I don't know if any of you guys look too young. I don't know if you know that happened. But in that meeting, at that point I was writing policy for the state, electronics policy, manufacturing, bringing more jobs, how do you create more industrial parks, things like that. And then the minister announced that we'll set up a WeHub. I'm like sitting in the audience and thinking, who will do this? This seems like such a tough job. Somebody is going to be dead. And so the minister called me next day and said that I want you to be the founding CEO of WeHub. And I said, incredible, sir, amazing. And I went to a convent school and a convent college. And then my father wanted me to join a women's engineering college. I said, never will I ever do anything with women. That was something I said when I was 17. And at 36 again, I was offered this job, okay? So then I think so always listen to your father, and if you do it then, you'll avoid things like this later in life. Okay, jokes apart. So then he did ask me to create WeHub, and I asked him what the budget was. He said 0. Number of people in the team, 0. What should WeHub do? You decide. So that was an incredible challenge. So as founders, one of the big things that we oftentimes look for is what is the problem I'm trying to solve. And my problem statement, at that point I became an entrepreneur within the government. I was asked to create WeHub, where there was no vision. There was a statement, but there was no vision, mission. But the goal was to empower or enable 1 lakh women. That was the problem statement that was given. So then I had no clue how to do it. Because I never worked with women. Because I was so much in engineering and I was designing antennas for about 15 years, I've not worked with a lot of women either. I don't know what this means. So that's when I think, exactly as ma'am was mentioning about how they went to the doctors, they found their first clients, I actually started meeting women entrepreneurs who were doing great, and they were from different socioeconomic strata. I met, maybe one day I had the opportunity to meet somebody as incredibly highly educated as Dr. Geeta. The next day I was meeting a lady who actually has never stepped out from her home but employs 3 people. So I had the opportunity. So I did a field study of about 500 women entrepreneurs. So that is how I actually started out. And then I realized that in government, there are already these SAG women who are being supported by the government. Then you have the Department of Industries, which actually supports women entrepreneurs through their industrial policy. And then there is also the startup hubs who are helping entrepreneurs. But the challenge was that there was no end-to-end support. And that is what I realized that WeHub should be doing. Instead of trying to recreate what everybody else is doing, why don't we actually create that gap-filling opportunity so that women do not have to go to 30 different places, but get access to everything at one platform, and that is what we did at WeHub, simply. And through that, the goal was simple. First, we don't look at women as candidates for empowerment. We actually enable the women entrepreneurs to realize that they're entrepreneurs first, and women is a coincidence that they're already women. They identify as women, right? If they identify as women, it's already there. Third, the purpose of an entrepreneur is to be profitable, be in the green. So help them understand how to make money. That's all our goal was, and happy to share that in the past. And then, by the way, we had 0 money. We were able to raise 2.9 crores before having an office. from the German government. And we had a team of 6 people, a lot of incredible kids from Yale and Berkeley within the first 3 months, at a salary of 12,000 to 30,000 rupees each, because that's all we had. That's what I could go and beg. And by 2018 July, we had a 12,000 square feet office space, which again, I could get from begging people, literally begging all the officers to give me some space, because any great idea, even as great as VHub, which is announced on a global stage, does not actually get the visibility if it is not a physical space. So we could do all this. So that's what. And again, all this due to the team. Yeah, thanks.
Dr. Geeta, correct me if I'm wrong, but Nirmay grew to a $24 million valuation? Yes, okay, that's huge in the deep tech healthcare space. What was your experience when it came to dealing with investors, figuring out things like valuation? I mean, you touched a little bit upon it earlier, but if I could just dive a little deeper into that, because it's kind of like a dream valuation. So.
Yeah. I think the valuation is much higher.
That's
But
what I was wondering.
that's a
I said,
3-year-old.
yeah.
No, but you're right. But until you raise funds, you don't know the next round of. So the last valuation, yes, was that. But thank you. I wasn't sure whether you were going to announce this year. So I think first when we had this idea and then we had to go and pitch, and I also had this sort of timeline, right? You know, like within 3 months, I had to pay up and so on. And this is something I haven't spoken on stage much about paying back and so on. So one thing that really helped is network, right? I think this is one of the very, very good initiative that LWL is taking in trying to sort of connect people, right? And that's one of the major gaps in women, as we were speaking earlier. So my old classmate of IASC and so on was one of the Axel Partners founders. So of course there was a conflict of interest. I didn't go to the same thing, but he recommended that I go and pitch to 1 or 2 of the investors. So that's how my first pitch happened. Honestly, I'd only pitched, I've never pitched, of course, but to investors, but I had only sort of presented to senior managers, etc. in Xerox. So this was a very different. So, but thankfully, sort of, he really initially liked the idea itself, and so the first one itself was a positive, conversion. But the kind of due diligence, the kind of questions they ask, right? One says, yes, the idea is good, this is good, and what's your go-to-market, and what's going to be your projections, and all of these are, you have to go back and do the homework for it, because again, there's no other company to depend on. What is the pricing? All of these sort of, you have to go back to books and you talk to people, as she was saying, and then try to sort of understand. So every question actually I had a co-founder at that time for first 1 year. So we used to sort of go back and do the homework and read and then send the answers about a week. So I think the first 1 month, the kind of learning or understanding the problem itself, what we are saying. Yes, of course, we want to sort of, try and do something for breast cancer. That's a high level thing. But exactly what are the gaps that we are trying to solve? And how will this fit into the current standard of care? Several of these sort of nitty-gritty questions, right? And to make that what we call as product market fit, right? Where is that happening? What is the target market size? So these are some of the questions which were like, first pitch was, I was just noting down the questions. I really didn't know the answers. So we had to go back. I really told them this is what it is. Let me go back and do the homework. So I think that was an amazing era where I was learning a lot of things on the go. And then it was only like, how do we make the product, etc. The second round of funding we raised after 2 years, right? So that was a little bit more, because for seed round, we got like 3 term sheets. We hardly got a no. Somebody saying, oh, have you already closed? It was a really, really very, very attractive seed early stage startup, I believe, as if I look back and think about it, right? And first introduction to the investor, and then they connected us with so it became a consortium of investors. So we raised 1 million at that time. This is 2017, I was talking about, USD. Then after 2 years, we raised the next round of funding. This was not as simple because here, yes, we told we'll do a study. We had done the study. We got some good results. So we had done what we had promised to our seed round of investors. So that was the positives. But then what is the growth story? So here we had some investors coming in and saying, it is a very, very hard market to crack. And there's already mammogram. You're coming in and challenging a standard of care that's been around for 35 years. And if you have to sort of really reach everyone, will you be able to do it? So here, though I didn't really want to talk about women, but it really came in there, right? So it's such a hard problem. I don't think, you will be able to do. I mean, I'm not sure kind of thing. How much of, you can show any number of numbers, any amount of proof points that you can, but definitely a lot of things are in the air when you're putting up the projections there, right? So that did hurt. We had to pitch close to 50 plus investors, I think, right? And we got first connected to Dream Incubator Japan. So Japan, by the way, have a lot of women with dense tissue, so mammogram is the lowest usage there. So they found it really, really helpful. So that was the cracking point for the Series A investors, I would say. And they came in and say, oh, you're an Indian startup. We need to have a Big Five auditor. Because there's a trust on the financial practices of Indian companies, right? So that's it. We said, okay, fine. So even now we have KPMG as our auditor. It's super expensive. Sorry if any of you are from KPMG, but we still have to maintain that. Then they had a bunch of conditions, CS as we say, and we were able to reach out. So that was the last round we did, and after that it's been pretty tough in the last few years to get to the Series B, because in healthcare revenues are there. But it's not as good as, let's say, an e-commerce or something. But yes, we have ticked many of the points in medical device industry, like getting an approval from Europe, getting an approval from US, etc. So things are moving on. But yeah, 100 plus investors already pitched. We have some early funding already happening, but a Series B is going to be a big one. Fingers crossed.
Amazing. We heard it first here. Dipti, what do you feel where's the biggest gap when it comes to women who are looking for funding, whether it be in tech or otherwise? Because now that you've interacted with so many, and if I look at that pipeline, more of the entrepreneurs, not so much the grassroots for a moment, but more of the entrepreneurs, whether it's, and how many women are there leading the tech businesses? What have you seen? Where's the gap in terms of getting them more involved, and where's the gap in terms of taking them to the next level?
First, as the gap that I oftentimes noticed is that many of the entrepreneurs, I think most of you in the room also, do not avail the amazing, incredible schemes that are there in the government of India. You guys don't use those financial resources at all. Like when you want to raise some money, you end up going to an investor, and let's say he'll ask for your 90% of your business to give you maybe 10 lakh rupees. You'll be like, I got funding, so I'll give it. But do you know that under the government of India, there's a scheme called CGTMSE, in which you get up to 2 crores of rupees without collateral, and your interest can also be subsidized by the state government schemes, on top of the central government schemes also. So I feel that most of the entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs especially, do not focus on documentation as much. And that is when they miss out on the many, many schemes that are available in the government of India, that are there in the state governments, that are there in the incubators, that are there by the aid agencies. Ma'am can speak a lot more about it.
This is a new one, right? Which
no,
last year?
Super old, ma'am.
Okay,
super
I
old.
don't know.
Okay,
I
ma'am
know
also
there
does
was a new
not
one
know about
also.
it.
No, I
but
don't
then
know.
what I'm trying to get
I
at,
knew that Nirmala Sitaram ma'am actually announced, so I called her and said like the process is still happening. So
I
need
read
to
the
sync up
document.
with
I
you.
didn't call Nirmala Sitaraman ma'am. I just called. But ma'am,
I'll
you
sync
call
up
Geeta madam if you want to talk to finance minister. But jokes apart, I would humbly request, I think that most of us do not look at documenting our company. We don't get involved in the incorporation. We don't get involved in the registration. We don't get involved in a lot of things. I think the knowledge gap, as a founder, we are very happy to hand it off to a very qualified auditor or a CA or CS to do our work. I think the minute we get involved, that is when we'll understand our finance. Second thing I noticed is that there is somebody hears that there is a VC who's funding all and sundry. Everybody runs to them. But the fact is, even an investor who is investing in all and sundry has a type of startups that they want to invest in. I think the matchmaking is actually the second thing that most of the entrepreneurs do not do. We need to be more purposeful when we do that kind of like research on who do we actually go to. And third, if you are attached to an incubator, it is your right to extract every single drop of knowledge from that incubator, especially with regarding to financial documentation, valuation documentation, and also understanding how to actually get good governance mechanisms. These are three areas broadly I've noticed that many of the entrepreneurs that I've worked with, women entrepreneurs who are in a tech space, who are actually in the D2C space, many spaces, they do not look at it at all. So that is where I think we lose. And when you talk about how do we actually bridge that gap, build knowledge. And second thing, don't network with people. Did you understand what I'm saying? Because we do it with a passion like, I'll give you my card, I'll add you on Instagram. No, be more purposeful in your networking. Networking is not giving a card, knowing somebody, saying that a friend of a friend of a friend. Great. But be more purposeful. Build a relationship. Understand why you're meeting with that person, because a network is only as strong as the people who are in that group. If you're not bringing anything to the table, why would somebody actually engage with you? So make sure you're adding value to the person you're meeting as well. That is when it becomes a two-way street. Otherwise, you'll have a bunch. It's like having, I don't know, I think on Facebook I have 10,000 friends. But how many of them do I know in real life? It's as simple as that. I think that is the gap that all of us need to bridge better. Be more purposeful in networking. You join this LWL. When you're here, it is very important that you network among your peers. But also make sure that whoever is sitting here and giving you gyan, how are you engaging with them? How are you using them? And how are you delivering value to us? Things like that, right? These are things I would like to request all of you to actually look at. Yeah.
Can I add?
Of course.
Because I think you inspired actually. So basically, we also got a lot of help from accelerator programs and initiatives. First, of course, state of Karnataka, right? Karnataka Startup Program. There was an Elevate 100. If some of you are from Bangalore, you should participate. There's a seed money that comes in. Then you can try some newer methods which probably you have not pitched to investors. You want to try it out. So that's what we did. We were also part of the Philips Healthcare Program. So there we got a lot of knowledge about how to go about getting the quality certifications, what is the regulatory. So whenever you go into a program or part of the, you go with the purpose, right? In this particular, like she mentioned about the network, right? I don't know whether I would do it for every person, but definitely if you're getting into a program like this or a group, then you say like, what is that you think you can achieve? And many times this mentorship program, they want to help you. So it's not wrong. It's not about matlabiness at all. Like you have to tell, this is what we want to do. Can you help? And so they will be, the discussion also will be more focused. I'm just building on what Deepthi mentioned there. So Philips was definitely helpful for that. We were also selected for Google Launchpad Accelerator Program. So this was 4 startups in San Francisco as well. So here we went with a purpose like how do we scale with the cloud that they had. And so, of course, they wanted us to get onto the cloud. Yeah, these are some of the things. And recently we are also on the Microsoft accelerator program called Startups, Microsoft for Startups called Pegasus program. So now because we are already commercial and we are in few countries, so our goal, and it kind of very well aligns with the goals of Pegasus program, is to see how do we get connected to really large customers of Microsoft who can use our solution. So it's been an amazing experience. They put us in front of their really, really top bosses of the top customers. It's really great actually. So you go with a purpose and then say this is what it is. Any mentoring and mentee program, I would say, right? It's all about how the mentee is able to utilize the best things that they can get from the mentor. I think that's very, very important. So we are responsible for making use of those help that many people are offering, such as we have. Yeah.
Last thing I'll add is that even as an entrepreneur, you need a killer resume. Okay? Make sure that whatever you're doing, you realize that it's going to be a digital footprint. So build a killer resume, right? So that is one more thing which is very, very important. Because you're now in the startup space, don't forget to be part of like bigger programs like Stanford, Spark is there. There's so many brilliant programs. See how you can be part of fellowships, which are very difficult to get in. Not anything which is giving you an invitation. And if something is easy and free, don't go for it.
Dipti just completed the Eisenhower Fellowship, right? Yes, she was just there as well. Would anybody like to ask a question? Yeah.
Uh, Hey Deepti, my name is Shubhangi and I'm actually registered in Telangana. So, yay Hyderabad. So my question exactly on the government schemes, and I would say there is definitely an awareness of these schemes because a lot of us would sit on, the Startup India website and just scroll through what's happening. But in my experience, when I was trying to, get the loan from Stand Up India scheme, I approached multiple banks, and the scheme is super attractive with a very low interest, 3% interest rate, 1 crore loan easily, and the payout is 7 years or 8 years, whatever. But none of the banks entertained. So I spent and wasted a lot of my time talking to the banks, which resulted in nothing. And there's a list on the website which has a lot of these, so to say, brokers who are of no help. So in such kind of situations, how can we approach these schemes and get benefited out of it?
Simply one answer, approach VHub or find an incubator. I'll be very honest. The purpose of incubator set up by government is to make sure that you are part of the incubator and you actually get a foot in the door and you get a one-on-one hearing. And obviously, the VHub would not advocate ki please give Shubhangi a loan. We'll say that Shubhangi is a prime candidate. We have audited all her documents. This is where she stands. We will also help you with the valuation of your company. The problem of founders, I'm sorry ma'am, the problem of many founders is that we end up sometimes doing a valuation which is very attractive to us.
Yeah.
But is it practical or not? As somebody, you need a devil's advocate.
Right.
Or a Samaritan. I think the incubators can play both of these roles. Okay. So if your paper's in order, I don't think any bank will want to refuse you. So I think you should actually tie in with an incubator in that case and find a good one.
Okay.
Wherever I am is the best one. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Thank you.
Go ahead. Yeah. I think just a moment. Yeah, Krupa.
Hi, my name is Krupa. I think one of the questions that I had for both of you from a different perspective, Deepti, for you is, usually it's very rare to see a very well-educated woman getting into government. And or you would see a film actress or a veteran then getting into the government. But I would like to know that part of your journey. Of course, you did dwell upon it, but how do people like us, for example, if we aspire to get into the government, how can we go through that?
How? Honestly, it's quite simple. First is, getting into the government seems very glamorous, right? You're hanging out with the ministers, and you're hanging out with the bureaucrats. By the way, you don't get a Lal Batti car. I had to work without salary for 9 months. And I was asked to leave the office. I was asked to get out of my job many times. Because you're an outsider, and how can you be seen as an equal with, let's say, a bureaucrat or a group 1 officer when you haven't really done anything except for being in America for so many years, right? So honestly, I think first is, why do you want to be in government? What is your purpose? I think if you're clear on that, the best way to actually get into it is actually meet which department do you want to get into? Government has so many departments. Don't be motivated by the do-goodery aspect of it. Look at what is the knowledge you have, what is the value that you can bring, not in terms of advice, but in outcomes. And find the officer who is in charge, and if they are dynamic, which is kind of always there.
Only if you are there.
I'll not say anything, so I don't know. Everybody in the system is incredibly talented, expert, they know everything. But if somebody you feel that is actually also going to listen to you, you find an officer, you work with them, it's not as difficult. Second option is that, as ma'am mentioned, the Big Four are actually the most preferred choice of many governments. if you do want to work in government, I think the big fours are a great opportunity for you as well. And the third thing is that if you want to commit material and career suicide, then you get into government, like me. So that is how it goes.
Thank you.
All right. So I think just to wind up the conversation, maybe just one last word of advice. We have a mixed room here in terms of intrapreneurs, entrepreneurs, both early stage and late stage. Just from both of your very, very dynamic journeys, anything that you'd like to leave us with today in terms of just a word of advice or anything else, an anecdote or any insight that you'd like to share?
Sure. I think many of us do know, being founders, that entrepreneurship is for those who enjoy challenges, enjoy solving the challenges. The difference would be like, you can take a walk on a nice looking park every day, or trekking, which I'm not saying you should actually love trekking to do entrepreneurship, but it's the fun in solving the problem, fun in solving the everyday challenges, and that's what is entrepreneurship. So don't expect a smooth, nice ride, right? But when you have these troughs and high points and low points, I think what will take us along is being very clear about what is the problem I'm trying and why am I solving that problem. Really, it's not for valuation, not for sort of the huge money, crore rupai which comes. I think many of us know we really want to solve that problem for the sake of solving the problem. So for any decision you are making, there are two options. So again, you ask which path is actually take you far along in that direction of the vision, direction of the problem you're solving. So then the dilemma also gets, so for everything you just keep the vision and problem statement, and the solution also may change a bit, right? That's only the methodology. Whether you use this hammer or that hammer doesn't matter, but the real problem is what you want to try and solve, right? So to keep that in view, you will get through the ups and downs. So I always feel that it's known. Every failure is, of course, a learning opportunity. So I have this sort of, everything happens for good. Ho gaya to ho gaya. It's for some good reason only it's happening, and then you're able to get over the troughs and then move forward. I think it's very important not to keep the baggage. Oh, I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have. Forget it. Go forward. Keep moving. And so, all the best in what you're doing. And one last thing, we talk about hard work. We talk about smart work to make it more productive. I also say there is heart work, right? Where I think if you really feel for the problem, you'll figure out that the journey is smooth. You'll figure out a way out from any dark rooms. Thank you.
She's like, are you really looking at me for advice?
I'm more like a cautionary tale. Don't do what she did. But simple thing, have a timeline for how long you want to be an entrepreneur and why. And be very fixated on the goal, but please don't be so rigid on the modalities on how you're going to get the goal. You have your ethical lines anyway. So please make sure that you're very, very agile in how you're getting to it. Because a lot of us as founders, we are so passionate about the idea and how we want to do it that we forget that the purpose of a business or a startup is to make money and deliver value for the employees, and also only when you're successful is when your idea is going to be celebrated. So that's all I'm going to say. Be rich. Be very rich. Be very successful. And that's when you're a true innovator, like ma'am. So
Amazing.
I'm not at rich.
Can I have a giant round of applause for both of them, please?
Thank you very much. All the best.